good. When you see me looking over here, that's I'm looking at you guys. I put you all on another screen, so I almost feel like I'm amongst you and see all of you. Really awesome to see such a big group of fellow Agilists. And very excited to share this topic. I was just at Heart of Agile with Rick last week. We were both speakers and presenting there. And this is, as you mentioned, this is one of the less usual topics. Just quick thumbs up from Nelu. You can see my screen, right? Cool. So this is one of the less usual topics. The first time I gave it this talk, I got the feedback that people somehow thought it was an HR topic. This is definitely not. You're not in the wrong place while you're reading Salaries. This is intended for Scrum Masters and product owners and anybody that's really engaged in an Agile and a Scrum environment. So I'll dive right in and we'll explore and see and show you guys this. I have this talk. I've given it in a 20-minute version and a 3-hour version. Since I have like 45 to 55 minutes, I put some of the sneak peeks that I usually do only in the longer version in here. So later in the talk, you guys it will be useful if you either have notes on your computer or a piece of paper, something handy, because I'll give some exercises that you guys can just take home. And then I put some extra slides in that are usually part of the workshop. And I shared the slides already so that I'm fine with them being distributed and you guys can use them and leverage the examples that are given in there. With that, just a really brief version about myself, David Hartman. I'm the founder and CEO of the Silver Logic. We are, and I'll keep that super short, we're a software engineering company. We build custom software and really focused on business automation. We have built up some startups. Some of them I co-founded, such as Waystones or Finjoy. But most of the time, for businesses of all sizes, we help them go and take being ruled by 27 different spreadsheets and transform that to something that's more manageable and driven by software and help people actually use their capabilities instead of being stuck with data entry. And that's often a really, really exciting and fun piece, since it just makes really happy customers and we can see them grow while we work with them. With that, I'll transition and since I can see some of you wanted to ask into the round, and I think Nelly, you'll switch over for this. Who's here? Since I'm new to this meetup, what are your backgrounds? What are the different roles in here? And I think Nelly, you'll be taking over my screen share. There we go.
Yeah, in the chat we have the ability to vote. Okay, I'm not voting, actually, just putting in your thoughts. So you gotta click on the link, or if you can text it, that's the instructions. You just text T culture to that number, and then you can text your answers.
And Nelu, this is a word art, right?
Absolutely.
So if you're gonna type it, like, what is your role, like your actual title? If your title has 2 words for word art, put a dash in between so that it stays together. You got to keep it all together. If not, it shows up as 2 separate words in 2 separate locations. So if I'm in a Scrum Master, I'm going to put Scrum_Master so that it stays together as 1 word. If you're unemployed, that's 1 word for sure. And we're live.
Yeah, we're live. Nice.
That's a long one.
Lots of Scrum Masters.
Yeah.
Here.
So the one that shows up the biggest is the one that we'll have the most of, right?
Yes.
And we got 2 big Scrum Masters, so
yeah,
like the popular one. Awesome. That's sort of what I had in mind and expected, but that's very good.
We also just have a master. I don't know who that is.
Yeah. We have a
Serious.
master scrum. We have a scrum and we have a master.
Yeah, and we got some unemployed folks.
We have someone in the chat as well, technical project manager, scrum master.
Wow, that's really long.
Yeah. All right.
Cool.
Cool.
Sounds good. And then I think you'll do the next question of what industries is everybody from? Where that's just interesting. Is everybody here from sort of a software background using Agile in a software context? Or is anybody here using Agile in the non-software world? And I guess while we're letting the answers come in, if anyone wants to share, all right, software seems to be the winner so far. Anyone that's from the other ones, are you running a software team in the other industries? Say, for example, caretaking or which else? Yeah, caretaking or logistics, shipping, is that, or telco, running the software team in there with Agile, or also running other parts of the organization Agile?
We also have software engineering and part of a PMO, and it's software driven in the chat.
Cool. Awesome. All righty. I think I'll
Alrighty? Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay. And
We can see it.
awesome. Thank you, everybody. That's just gives me a little bit of background to see who I'm talking to, because then I've given, sometimes if there's many business owners, if there's scrum masters, just gives me a good idea. So welcome to many scrum masters and many other roles that we've just shared. I'll dive first into a little bit of the background and the history, how this all came to be. So what inspired me to this system and this concept was our company is now, it's this October we turned 10 years old, and it's been quite the fun journey. But there is one thing that, especially in the early years, we came up with this, I think, about 8 years ago. And in the very early years, there were really only two reasons that people would want to talk to me. And they weren't the most fun reasons. But maybe, I mean, again, we can use the chat to keep it interactive. If anybody has some ideas of what those reasons would be of why people wanted to talk to me, they were, yeah, not the most fun ones. I'll take quick shout outs, either verbal or in the chat. What did people come to me with when
You look like a very smart person. I'll say homework. I don't know.
No, so while I had the company.
Oh, all right.
My employees, my team members. Many people have come to me with homework during my college days, yes, and high school. But no, I more during the company, while I've been CEO and my team's been growing, then yeah, many people have, and the answer is coming in. So there is, yeah, number one was, that is exactly it. So nobody for that, no free donuts. But the main reasons were either I want to quit, I'm resigning and I'm going somewhere else, or it was I'd like to have a race. And if that one didn't work out, if the second one didn't work out so well, it often turned into the first one a couple of weeks later or a couple of months later. So that wasn't really fun. I wasn't sure that that was really what I signed up for as a CEO, and that it also wasn't the best conversation, because when someone came to me to, I mean, if they wanted to quit, that's a general thing anyway. But if they wanted a raise, they also had to make sure, am I in a good mood? There's so many other factors that go into what the outcome of that conversation is, that isn't just thumbs up, but that's rather, and that doesn't depend even on the skill set or the current performance. It could have been that I was just chewed out by a client, or that I had a really bad day, or that I haven't had lunch yet, which there's fun statistics over judge decisions before and after lunch. So there's so many other factors that play in that are entirely irrelevant to the person's performance, that it dawned on me, this is not a good way to handle compensation and pay of people and determine their future fate with the company. So I wanted to change that conversation into something just much more productive, something that can be, that it's not a dreaded conversation for me, because when I got that Slack message or someone popping their head into my office in the days before COVID, I was like, hey, David, do you have a moment? Can you talk? Not the most comfortable conversation ever. And I wanted to sort of change that up, flip the script on it, and change it to something that is just more collaborative and constructive for both sides. And this is when our milestone system was born, and we came up with the Agile Salaries, where we wanted to turn it into something that, hey, let's have that conversation, and let's have it ahead of time, not just when you're, sort of about to resign if you don't get a raise, but let's have that conversation ahead of time of what value can you as an individual contribute to the company that can grow the value of the company, so that both of us are in a happy spot having this conversation, because I can say, yes, you deserve X amount more money because you're adding value to the company and you're enhancing the company. And so as I was preparing for this talk, I was digging more into, and I found some interesting stats from McKinsey, for example, that my company wasn't the only one that was having this issue. And even sort of now in very recent data, lack of career development and advancement is the biggest. And some of the other ones are really correlated there, that you can even make that stack bigger. So it's, a very common problem that makes it harder for people to advance within their role or within their organization in a meaningful way that doesn't require to hop around. And since many of you indicated being from the software field and from companies related to that field and technology overall, it's also, many of you have noticed how the tenure in the software industry is like a year or two is a long tenure for many positions or many employees. So I have, from there, I sort of dug into more and looked at how does this correlate, and how can I sort of give this more meaning. And I determined there's really a core piece of what our current compensation models. Many of you have seen this next piece, this little pyramid from Maslow, where most compensation models cover really well level 1 and 2, our basic needs, our physical, psychological needs, and safety needs of we need food, we need shelter, we need those basic things are covered in most compensation pieces. Many companies that have a great culture also cover level 3 of the love and belonging, and you have some place that you feel part of. But level 4 and 5 are very often forgotten. So I took it also from then another speaker I very much appreciate and like, which is Tony Robbins, less known, but than Maslow's pyramid, but some of you may have heard of him. And he also has as one of his the spiritual needs is growth, because if we can only be really truly fulfilled if we have some level of growth to some degree in our life. And I really took that to heart. And the next slide is more somewhat on the funny side of we have different types of compensation, where from historical days early on, we started with bartering, and we have that we can get paid in food. Later on, we added on, we could be paid in shelter. Then we came up with this really cool concept of money. And I kept the joke in, since many of you are in the software field, that pizza is totally also a valid form of compensation. I have done many long coding nights in return for pizza. But our current compensation models are really focused on the payment side of things. There's some money exchange, there's salary, commissions, bonuses, profit shares, and stock options, where some of those, like profit share and stock options, are really progressive already. And we also cover with benefits, we cover those more core needs or basic needs on the Maslow's pyramid: health insurance for health needs, retirement to think of the future, vacation to have a balanced lifestyle. But most compensation models and benefits models don't talk about your advancement and your growth potential. So that's one big piece that for us was just something that was missing, and that I really realized as people were having this conversation with me over and over, that I saw, okay, there's something missing that needs to be added into this. And that's when we came up with our milestone model, where we defined that a milestone is a set of well-defined skills. So something that I can objectively measure. And since if you're in Agile, we were back then as well. So we made it that we would write acceptance criteria as if this was a user story. We would write acceptance criteria for each of the milestones and make it, here's what you need to do in order to achieve this milestone. And we made the milestones all have one uniform value. So each milestone, no matter which it is, had uniform value, and then design them by what makes you grow as individual, helps you, enhances your team, and makes the company more valuable. If it meets those three criteria, it can become a milestone. And those went from very initially, we had just, okay, you learn, because our company, we do Django and React as our sort of weapons of choice for development. We made those milestones for being on a level 1 and level 2 and level 3 of those frameworks were some of the milestones we came up with initially. But over time, we designed more and more milestones that allowed people within the company say, oh, cool, this is the next goal I can have. And this is how I can now step it up, be from where I am today. This is how I can level up and can get a raise without having to go to David and ask him, hey, yo, so you in a good mood? Could I have a raise? But rather making it really objective. Here's your checklist. If you complete all of those, you tell your Scrum Master checks on it and then submits it for approval on the compensation update. And this has, for us as an organization, changed dramatically, for one, retention, but also just the spirit of that conversation. I have changed the conversation that was really uncomfortable to something that has now enabled people to think with me. And since many of you said you're Scrum Masters, I will get more in detail on that on one of the later slides, but I've turned this mostly over to the Scrum Masters and empowered them to design what are the next most valuable pieces for the company that can be useful and meaningful for people to learn, that increase our value, so it justifies increasing in compensation, increase in salary. So that the salary conversation is not one, oh, here, this year you'll get a 2% raise, or no, you did really well, you should have 6 or 7%, which just numbers are just so far arbitrary that I just very much disliked them and felt the need to come up with something else that can model this. An additional component that came into that was something very important in Agile, especially in Scrum, but in many fields of Agile, is cross-functionality. And there, it's even another enhancement to this that someone knows. Many of us have seen the I and T-shaped skills, but then as I was looking into that, there's even more of those from from a pie shaped or comb shape, that the more breadth of knowledge you have in different skills, meaning allowing someone not only, okay, I'm a software engineer, or no, in worse, many organizations, I'm a front-end developer, so I'm only going to work and learn towards this, but not develop the other skills because there's not that much incentive for me to pick up a little bit of design, to pick up a bit of QA or back-end development, DevOps knowledge. So I changed from having this type of evaluation to looking at my individuals as well as my teams in more this type of radar chart to see where are strong suits and weaknesses of each of the individuals, and then overlaying some of these on top of each other of an entire team, of where's the team really strong and where does it maybe need either someone added or encouragement for team members. Hey, do you want to learn more on this? We'll set some time aside, and here's milestones you can achieve in order to get deeper into that so that the team becomes more well-rounded. And I think one other visual that just describes this really well is comparing the traditional corporate ladder with more a trellis, where you don't just grow into one linear fashion, but you can expand into different areas, making you more cross-functional. Comparing sort of this traditional ladder where many things are time-based and you hop on, you go to the next, and oftentimes there's years, you just need to sit it out and you get promoted to the next position if you're doing a good job. Where time is one of the things I've excluded from all milestones, because if someone is performing well, I want to encourage them to do it in less time and learn in less time than to just stick around for more time. So we've taken this traditional ladder approach and I've termed it into a journey, so that you have more sort of this approach from leveling up and having different paths that you can go and different routes you can go down to. And obviously I'm a software engineer, that's my background as well. I've played plenty of video games, so that may have something to do with this looking a bit like a skill tree in some video game or the other. And with that, I want to go to this sort of the second part of the talk, where we're going to go through designing a journey. This is the part where I encourage that you have a piece of paper, and I'm going to go through the first slide, Nelu, and then we'll do the other survey. So to pick this up, and that's where I said I'm going to give the rest of the slides because we won't have time to go through all the steps. There's a 5-step process of how I've designed journeys. And I know this might not apply to all of you depending on what influence you have in your organization, because some organizations are very large, they're comp departments, and you can't just change how salaries and compensations are done. But what it can do for you is using this in order to still design journeys for your team members, because even if you can't assign, for us, it's a $5,000 increment in salary if you achieve a milestone. But for you, it can be just at least giving them helpful steps to see, here, I'm still growing, I'm leveling up, at giving guidance, as well as if it's a large organization, you're at least giving them something that they can then take to the person responsible for compensation. And if you're a small organization or someone with enough influence, then I really welcome you to go through these steps and see if you can make that change. So start with, just to have an easy example, pick a role, either the role in your team or organization with the most employees and or the lowest retention rate. So I've done this with some companies where, for example, their call center, really low retention rate. It was not the most employees, but it was one where there was a new face all the time. Or it could be that it's maybe the Scrum Master role, maybe a software engineering role, whatever it is that has a low retention rate or just many people, do that as a first one. So note down that role. And then we're going to pick, and again, this is very arbitrary. You expand this more if you do it in the bigger version, but pick the 3 most valuable employees. This can be totally subjective to what you think at this moment, but pick the 3 most valuable employees in that role, and now list those trait skills or special sauce that make them the most valuable. That if you could, and this is a crazy statement, but if you could clone those 3 people, your team, your organization could dominate the market, whichever market you're in. So as you go through, list some, it can be technical skills, can be soft skills. And I know everybody's different, but just use them as inspiration. See them, and I say it's this ideal role. And that's why I say 3, because sometimes you might have this person's really good there, and this person's really good in this. And we can do this if you pick the role of Scrum Master, because many of you are in that role, that's fine. You can each do it for you individually. And I think there is now where, Nelly, if you want to put up the other survey so that while everybody writes down for a second, we can also share this. And what are the skills employers are looking for when hiring Scrum Masters and Agile project managers? So any of you picking the role of Scrum Master can also take inspiration of some of the skills shared on here.
I know that was Tom. That was you, Tom. I know. If you cannot access or if you can click the link, let us know. So if you can put in the chat, I can help you. There you go.
Awesome. And now I'll keep narrating a little bit while we still keep this up. So I hope everybody has picked a role, and just, yeah, use this as really a brainstorming piece of just list some skills, what makes those people special, and you can expand it later, but just so you have some of those skills right now so that we can then take them into the next exercises. And I see if you look on the screen that Nelu's sharing, then you see some of the fun and good skills that some of you have entered there. Coaching seems to be the really dominant one. And with that, I think, are you good, Nelu, if I take back the screen?
Yes, go ahead.
Awesome. All righty. So with that, I'll go into the next step, which is modeling. So now, as we take the different, so say, for example, coaching was a big one. If you take the concept of coaching, you want to now model this out. You want to make it, like, give it specific acceptance criteria of what does it mean to be good at coaching? What does it mean achieving this milestone? So that you want to take the different steps in there. And there I recommend being objective, and then, if any of you knew the SMART goals, being specific, measurable, achievable, relevant. And I cross out time bound because, again, I don't believe that anything that's time bound you can likely restate based on something else. Meaning, instead of saying you've been a coach for 6 months, you can say you've done this many facilitation, or you've coached this many teams, or you've done other things that aren't time bound, because then you encourage achievement and performance versus just being in the role and sort of waiting it out. And you don't stifle those that want to be high achievers. And you take now those descriptions and turn the descriptions into attributes and knowledge. And then if you're, for example, doing it for Scrum Masters, consider their background is different than if you were to design a journey for a software engineer or for a call center representative. That there might be very different degrees of education that how you describe things. But that's more sort of one of the advanced tips. But now you want to do these pieces from like a little description of, hey, good at coaching, and turn it into something just more descriptive and attributes that can be measured and that are just really specific and measurable. And there I give you one of the examples is when I picked QA as a role, then instead of saying she's a good QA and can catch bugs before release to production, we might turn that into what does that really mean? And what does it involve to be good at that? So knowing the flow of the system and understanding how the feature affects different pieces, creating a test plan. And this is still very abstract, but now I hope this gives a level of an idea of how you turn the short version or this description, an abstract idea you have, into something longer. And again, for any of you that don't necessarily have the influence, still take this to heart as a coaching exercise in your teams and encouraging your teams of giving them a learning journey. Because for my organization, it's been tremendously helpful, not only because, yes, there's the incentive, there's money behind it, which is the ultimate goal if you can achieve it, but even just having that roadmap of, hey, these are things I can learn, and here's a path to learn them. Because if someone just says, hey, become better QA and you'll eventually be promoted, but what does that mean? This is to make it tangible for them. And the next step there is to make that a path, because you don't just go from a novice or an intern to a pro. You need some steps in between. You need to give them levels to level up in there. And from step 1 and 2, you might have different characteristics. You might have coaching from the first one, and in coaching, you may have in step 2 broken down into multiple of those characteristics. What does it mean? It means maybe knowing facilitation practices. It might mean being able to do interactions with a team and with the members of the team, facilitating them through whatever hurdles they come across. Or it might mean being able to quickly resolve impediments between teams. Whatever you make it in that step 2, that's part of it. You can then say you're familiar with so and so many facilitation practices. Now here you can make it a path of maybe that's a level 2 thing, that knowing any facilitation practices, and maybe knowing 1 and then knowing 3 is your level 2 and level 3. So that's how you make a path. And again, I'll show an example of how you organize what you did in step 2 into now, all right, let's make some categories, because now you can turn this into here's your little path of how you go from a basic, intermediate to pro, or level 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's really up to you how you design those and how to make those levels. And I'm gonna pause for a moment. I'm just keeping us sort of on the pace of where I give you the concepts. I know you're likely not able to keep up now with step 1, you maybe kept up. Step 2 and 3, you'll need more time, but I encourage you to just jot down a couple of them. And then if this sounded interesting to you and inspired you to something, then circle back later after the talk and just flesh them out more. And when I do this as a workshop version, then I give everybody at least like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes for different aspects of this, so that you can just flash it out enough and then exchange some ideas. So in step 4, we now take those very specific pieces. Here I had the examples of them, and make them measurable, so that you don't just have, all right, here we had the example of knows about the overall flow of the system, but now take it a step even farther and identify goal, make it measurable, tie numbers to it wherever you can, but otherwise at least make it so this becomes more and more a checklist. So I'll have more examples for that as well. And here you're really trying to make it so that the person that reads this, one of your team members, could say, yep, I got this, I got this, I got this, and here I'll need to work on this some more. And then you might have a conversation about it, but it's something that doesn't require this awkwardness of, hey, yeah, so could I have a raise? But just turns it into something where you're now pulling on the same string and you're in sync about it. So here we're taking the attributes that we just came up with. And that's why I was saying I'll share the slides so you have these examples and can see them and translate them, because I understand I'm going at a good pace through them. But you can take the attributes and now tie them to something measurable. So for example, collects data from different tools and recurring issues. The second one, we can tie into, we, for example, use Sentry. So all Sentry errors are marked as reviewed with a resolution. Or creates bugs and suggests prioritization based on recurrence of areas and being affected. So the GR board has bugs as our measurement and validation, and the bugs have a priority and a link to the Sentry error. So that now you're not only giving that person a path, but you're also making it that you design what's that ideal role. And as I mentioned, if you're in your organization, you're unable to affect this is directly tied to compensation, you can still give this whatever team members you have that you really want to retain and keep in your team because they're great and have great potential. You can give them a heck of a lot of firepower to go and have that compensation conversation with whatever the structure is in your organization, to say, look, here's what I've been working on, here's what I've achieved. And having that structure, me as an employer that would see that if anyone would come to me with something like that, yeah, the conversation is likely going to go much smoother than someone that just walks in and says, hey, I've been around for a year now or 2 years. I think I should get a raise, or just telling me, oh, so the market says I should really get a raise. Those are just, as an employer, not the most favorited or favorable conversations to have and things to hear that don't necessarily make me as likely as if I see here's how that person is impacting their team and just making the company overall a better place, showing initiative and showing their value. So the first 4 steps are all about designing these journeys. Step 5 is a less in that realm and more what I call the decentralize and empower. So for our organization, we've done it that I designed all the original milestones that we had in the first couple of years, but then about 3 years ago, or COVID confuses me, so it might be 4 years ago, 2, 3, 4 years ago, I started not only being the only one that designs these milestones, but inviting everybody else in the organization, because I wanted to get not just my brain power. We're 65 employees currently. I wanted to get all 65 brains, not just one, to give input here. And especially this comes in that here I've gotten off the first response that like, no, HR should handle that. But you don't want HR to handle this. You want you as a Scrum Master or you and team members to handle that, because you have so much more insight in the day-to-day. You're the only ones that can come up with a list this specific to what is valuable for you. Not, if I ask HR, they're going to copy and paste the job description from the internet, not to offend anyone from HR. You do valuable work, but oftentimes if you don't have that exact insight, they might just take different descriptions, maybe mold them and put them together in something that fits really well, but without input from the people that actually interact with those that this impacts, it's just a lot less valuable. And I've used it in particular to those, at times, people would max out whatever milestones we had designed, they would have checked them all off. And at that point, I was like, okay, what makes you more valuable and what can you still learn? And here is interesting topics. And that's how we, for example, recently designed our SecOps security milestones and a whole set of them in that realm, because it was something we weren't doing it as an organization before. But it's also, there's always more milestones that come out of those individuals that might embody them already. But now it's taking what are they and how are they so special and really valuable, and describing it so there can be a path for others to also achieve that greatness. So it's not just, yeah, I want to be like Johnny one day, but what is it that makes Johnny so great? And how do you achieve that level of greatness? To whatever degree we can obviously put in words and make tangible. There might be some soft skills or some combination of skills, but giving people that buy-in just makes it, and that opportunity makes it a lot more tangible for them. And there, I then added this as something for the Scrum Master role. So now our Scrum Masters every month check in with all members of their team on where they're at in their with their milestones. So instead, it doesn't forced. So if you don't want to talk about your milestones because you haven't worked on them, that's all good, that's fine. But there's at least the quick check-in of, how are you doing on them? Are you blocked on something? Do you need a course or some training material? Or do you have questions maybe for other team members? Do you need to know who else has achieved it or is working on it so that they can now work together and collaborate? We have little study circles of different people that might be working on a machine learning milestone or on the CSP milestone or on the security milestones, so that they now collaborate and get together to share knowledge and share training material that they found useful. And a really fun one that we do also with this check-in is just tracking the progress, celebrate the leveling up. We use Slack as an organization, and every time someone achieves a milestone, and this goes counter many of the taboos around salaries, but we actually make it that we post on the general channel where everybody's in on Slack. We post when anybody achieves one of those milestones and celebrate together. And I've taken it as far as that pretty much anybody can calculate each other's salary because it's very uniform. And it goes into my sort of final topic on this, is where I've taken it even now farther, to the degree that one of the big issues is in the realm of compensation is, how do I compensate fairly? How do I account for changing markets that, like we're in right now, for changing markets that make it harder for people that are coming in to maybe demanding higher salaries than people that are already in the organization, which then, like, that's always was a very scary thing for me, because I don't want to be unfair. People that have been loyal and with me for years, I'm not going to compensate them any worse than someone that comes in new, unless there's something that I can identify that makes them different. So for us, it's pretty much at the level that roughly the milestones of someone else. You could calculate their milestone, their levels. Be my guest. I would almost invite anybody at my organization to, if I just shared them all publicly on a sheet, then there's very little chance that anybody would challenge it, because everything is just very much objectively evaluated that, okay, you have these levels, thereby you have this level of salary. And I've taken that now to the level where when I have the last interview in our hiring process, instead of just making an arbitrary offer or listening to whatever market value this position has or what a person is requesting, I actually I walk them through all the milestones that are appropriate for their role, explain all of them one by one. And then we go through and I say, okay, if you have the first 3 months to prove yourself and what you can do and what you know currently, then which ones of these would you say you're familiar with or will be familiar with within the first 3 months? And it's been an amazing turnout how people very honestly evaluate themselves of what is it that they know and what is it that they think they can achieve in those first 3 months, and giving them the opportunity to just evaluate themselves. And I often leave the conversation with, look, here's maybe a range, these you are maybe unsure on, so take this home, think about it. I share them the whole list of milestones and I let them ponder on it, sleep on it for a night or two, and then they can come back with me of, okay, this is what I think I can commit to. This is my sprint goal for those first 3 months of where I can make it to, and that will be their starting salary. And then during those first 3 months, they have a monthly check-in of seeing here's how I'm at, where I'm at, how I'm doing, and showing that those can be achieved. And then after that, they can keep going and leveling up to whatever other milestones they want to tackle as they evolve and go farther. And one big thing that has ensured for me is that it doesn't matter what the current market says, and what I've not had to go in the weird situation of compensating people differently that are coming in versus that are already in the organization. And it has also made most people that see this in action have taken a second look at what they really are sort of demanding as an offer. Because if someone sees the possibility that I'm not stuck at a salary forever, but there's a possibility to grow, many people reevaluate how they see, okay, this is what I could be making next year and the year after, or in 6 months from now. And I've seen it in our organization oftentimes that people they complete 1 milestone or 2, 3, 4 milestones in a year. And it's really driven by how energetic, how pushy someone is to, and how eager to learn. And as final piece, I'll go over, so when I had this talk the first time, someone brought up to me that, hey, dude, you gotta, can you just share me the document, or share it with me, which back then was just a Google Doc, not the prettiest thing. So I felt a little embarrassed just sharing him the Google Doc. And since we're a software engineering company, it's sort of easy for us to just build things. And we came up with, instead of calling it milestones, calling it waystones, and building a little system around it, and making it so that that's where the visual earlier came from, where you can just see, here's my journey of, okay, I know these fundamentals, maybe I'm learning React level 1 or Django level 1, and leveling up through the steps to just make it easier to define all of this, where it's a slight, a small sneak peek of the platform, where you can now have, again, as I mentioned, video game inspired, but where you can have this trellis or the skills tree that you can go through and evolve and have. And here on the side, you see now what I was mentioning was really specific. Here for an architect or for Django level 3, you might need to resolve 250 story points worth of this. And you could expand it, you can read more details. We have to do 3 8-pointers. So being really specific on what the achievements are that get them there, and then having a little overview of, here's my different journeys, that maybe here as a software developer, here I've chosen, I also want to learn some about product design, but mainly I'm focused on software development. And there's my salary, and I have a little look ahead where I could see what else makes it work and what else brings it to a next level. And I won't go too much into, because I know I'm nearing the end. There's just really briefly, there's other pieces that come into this that make it work even better. And we practice open book management, where the team knows some level of the profit of the company, or what revenue goes into, or what the budgets go into. So that's an interesting concept, which is, one level more challenging to implement in any organization. But the easier one is just a strong mentorship program, where you pair up people in the teams, or just encourage different team members to help out each other to become better and better. And one of the pieces that we've done to balance some of this is we've implemented a profit share, where each of the teams sees what they're doing and how they're doing, so that it also stays to a certain level balanced, that you don't just want everybody to be a level 20 super wizard, but if they're not doing it, then that now decreases what profitability that team has. But those, happy, reach out to me, and I'll go into those 2 topics a little more. I just sort of wanted to mention them at the tip. And with that, I thank all of you and open it up. I think we have the round of questions. And I'm glad I added the second part to that slide on the right is, since I saw unemployed as one of the current job titles, we are on a somewhat constant path of hiring. So I'll just throw that out there and
Awesome.
invite you. And there is my email address, dh@tsl.io. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I meant to put a little QR code on there, but forgot, I see. So, and if any of you are interested in signing up for our closed beta, then there is a sign up, and I think we just published the login for Waystones. And I don't really care so much about monetizing it. I care more about changing how this type of system and how salaries are run. So feel free to sign up, and anyone from here, I'm still leaving the registration for the beta open to be free.
Awesome. Awesome. So do we have any questions? Do you guys have any questions for David? James? Go ahead.
I think I love the way that you've used SMART in a different way. I come from an infrastructure background, management infrastructure, and that would have been a much better way of doing it. And actually, how you even use that to come up with a job description instead of HR deciding to come up with something that is so general and is so doesn't really get you the people you want with the right skills initially. Makes it much harder then to.
Oh no, I think we lost James.
Did you?
Anybody want to fill in for James?
Oh,
Yada,
James,
yada,
yeah.
yada.
I think he's back.
Back.
James, are you back?
You're frozen for a little bit.
I'll go back. So the biggest.
I froze again.
Yeah. Maybe
All right.
turns off his camera. James, if you turn off your camera, then maybe your connection might be a little better. Sometimes that happens.
Is that any better?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Okay. So amazing. I was just saying there about using SMART goals, making them. They are much better to even produce your own. I said about the job. When you've got vacancies, that's like a job description opposed to something so general, and it helps you get the people you want. I was just thinking about that. I think, I don't know if you use that, but I think the biggest factor here that you have to your advantage is your transparency. How many companies would do something like that? That's really courageous.
Yes, it's been an interesting and courageous piece, but it's worked well. And I've seen now, like I'm in Vistage, which is a group of CEOs where some people are adopting at least pieces from it. And as I was at this conference I was last week, where that's why I mentioned it's the very early step is at least defining certain achievements this way so that people have a path, even if salaries can't be tied to it yet, but giving people a growth path and a journey to growth already enhances the loyalty and gives them, as I mentioned, that firepower to have a more impactful compensation conversation.
Yeah, well done. I think that is fantastic that you do that, and I could relate to why people would want to be in your company, because they can see what's possible.
All right, thank you so much. I think we have a question in the chat. Or Rick, did you have a question?
No, I didn't have a question.
We have a question in the chat from Lorraine. What is the salary range for mid-career Scrum Master that is hitting all the milestones you mentioned?
So this is you're trying to mix the two concepts where I don't know what mid-career means for you, and I challenge to question what that means. So if you want, I think my email was up on there. I can, with anyone, I can share what we have defined as milestones currently for product owners or scrum masters. So I'm going to put my email in here to reach out to me. So you can also, for your own organizations, feel free to copy them and steal from it. I'm more happy when this, like, just changing a little bit how the dynamic works on how salaries are done. So what we have defined our very base is whatever makes a nice even number, but it's somewhere around 31,000 plus every milestone is 5,200, meaning which then goes into the $150,000 to $200,000 range. There's no limit. It just does these increments. So someone that starts, even someone in earlier, some of the milestones are very easy so that when someone starts, they can already check some of them off. And it's then about, because I wanted to make it that every role starts from the really base level, because I hire a lot of people fresh out of college or people that are changing careers. So that's why I made the really like a $15 an hour type starting level for people fresh out of high school or college, but that can then level up and add $5,200. I like even numbers. That's $100 a week. At that interval, can add more and more and more so that they can then achieve whatever the level is and go at their pace.
That's awesome, David. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, so this is the end of the session, and before we end, I want to make sure that we do something that's really special for us. We want you all to turn on your video cameras because we want to actually take a nice little snapshot of the group, but there's something that we're asked to do here. So think about it. As you heard David in his presentation, who do you think is mostly responsible for your career path? And I want you to project that answer. And we're going to take a quick snapshot. So if you had to point to somebody who is ultimately responsible for taking you to the next level of your career, how would you do? Regina's already pointing at herself there.
Yep.
Okay, good job. And don't point at me. All right, so we're going to take a snapshot. Nelu, are you ready?
I am ready.
Do we have everyone with their cameras on, or do you want to motivate some people to turn on their cameras? Turn on your cameras, turn on your cameras.
Yeah, they're doing it. There you go. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I see some of my friends, Adolfo, Carolina. How are you? Welcome, guys.
Awesome.
All
Okay.
right. Go
I'm
ahead.
gonna go 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Gotcha. Thank you.
Awesome.
All right. So what we're gonna do, just so that everybody understands, we normally move that up to LinkedIn and we share it. Now what I need you to do is please go in there and like it, provide some comments. David, great job, amazing. Thank you for sharing. And make sure you spread the word because we want to keep growing the community. Okay, we've been doing this for a long time now. Now, because I want to have increase everyone's salary here, I'm gonna have to double the admission to our meetup. Okay,
Two free bears.
2 free beers.
Yeah,
No.
1, 2, 3.
All
Hey,
right.
I did, when we're done here, I did have another question I wanted to ask David.
Yeah, so questions are we're fine. Just be aware, David cannot leave. I don't know if he read the fine print, but you're part of this community. So we're gonna have any other questions that we have for them. We're gonna be able to hopefully get him to answer it, or invite him again. Right? There can be additional sessions that hopefully he'll come join us. David, are you okay with that?
Sounds good.
All right, that's it. We've got him.